Hey there, everybody. Yeah, that's working. Hey there, everybody. How's it going today? Doing a little stuff on the bench. So, figured we'd do a live stream and see if there's any questions out there from anybody at the same time. So, if you have anything, throw it in the chat. Specifically, if you're a Patreon, don't hesitate to get up onto the Discord and throw it into the chat there. Any files you have or whatnot that you'd like to be looked at. I have a special section on the Discord for patrons, and anybody can put it up there on the live stream hangout as well. So, and take a look. And if you have any questions in the meantime, other than that, I'm probably going to browse around and kind of do some catch up and see what is out there to kind of help people out. So let me open this Discord up here. Fancy mic squared away. All right. And I should be able to share up my screen, face and chat. What's this one? Looking at this one. Yeah, let's do that. So this is something I was looking at today a little bit more. Just getting into that INAV altitude hold, trying to really get some content out there on how that thing ticks, because it surely seems to have a lot of drift up and down. So if you're having issues like that, and INAV for altitude hold and position hold and the altitude part of it, I don't think you're alone. There's a lot of people that are having issues with that. In this one, we're and you have to excuse me. I have a little bit of a cough. Not so much a cold, but just disease from the kids. But I'm getting over it. A couple variants of this right here. So you can see here in this one, this is where, and I don't have any HD to go with it, but that will be coming in the video itself. But if you go too high on your gains in INAV here, I can show you which ones I'm talking about. If I pull this up, and I want to take this and plug this one in. So you have these gains for altitude hold under the PID tuning tab. And these gains here, you can see what the defaults are. And I don't even know if that's the default. Let me reset PID controller. Just make sure. Should be the default. Yeah. So these defaults here, you can see 100, 50, and 10. If you go too high on it, specifically this one, this will start to cause like a bouncing action in your altitude hold. So you can play with it quite a bit. And this kind of shows there that bouncing action where the quad will go woo, 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 up and down. So if you have anything like that, or it's bouncing a little bit, that is definitely because this I term here, right here, is a little too high. And you can bring that down. So that was an iteration there. Another thing I've been messing with is taking this variable. So there's how's it getting its data? Well, it's getting its data if you've watched any of the last INAV videos on this Z position estimator. So that's just a P controller with that. But how's it still has to read the barometer for some of that. And then that variable, you have to go into the CLI. If you type in get _Z _again, you can see this variable right here, this INAV WZ baro P. And if you start to increase this variable, you will start to make it more sensitive to changes in the barometer reading. So been messing with that, seeing what the variance. Lots of things to adjust for sure. And it's just getting that down of which is which, through a trial and error process here, which is best to adjust. It surely is tricky. So you can see in here coming in, tried some values of higher order of magnitude on that. So if I type in get underscore z underscore, you can see in here pumping that up to about a 5. So normally the default is a 0.35, I think that was. Bumping that up to a 5, what's that do? And it's a little too high, a little too jumpy. So let's take that back down for the next one. Take that down to a 2. See how that goes. But the value on that really seems to have an impact on when you increase and lower the throttle, what that is going to do for, how that's going to impact how quick it jumps up and jumps down based on your throttle inputs. So that mid throttle where you actually want to hold and tell it, hey, if my stick is at this point, that's adjusted under advanced tuning, because your throttle becomes an altitude hold where it's almost like a DJI quad, right? Whereas if you go above this midpoint or below this midpoint, which I have set at 1500 microseconds, then it will increase the altitude hold position or decrease the altitude hold position. Use mid throttle, so you can just toggle that. So that's what I want to do. I want to go back there. I actually wanted to adjust that. So let's check out the Discord here, see if there's anything in there. There we go. AI. Tell you, Discord is just updates constantly, and there's always constant. Unbelievable. Have a drone. Okay, so I got something here we'll take a look at. All right, so we got something here. Josh G. Hi, Discord. Come on. I don't want a new app or anything added. Just work. All right, Josh G says, I have a drone tuned pretty tightly, but still getting some hefty prop wash. Any suggestions where to look? So I downloaded that. This is a 2.5 inch 4S ducted Cinewhoop. So Cinewhoop. So that's going to be a little tricky. But let's see what we got. All right. So I'm pulling this up. This is the log he uploaded. Going to change that to 0 for the, let's see. Okay, I'm going to turn exaggeration on. So we have, just get, usually just open these up. See, I don't see anything concerning here for noise level or anything of that nature. Let's see what we have for trace template 4, stick tracking. and see the motor traces here are real smooth. So you got plenty of filtering, which maybe maybe there's too much filtering. Let's look. So we have a biquad filter here at, and you can see that up here. So just dissecting this. So if you're not familiar with logging and you want to kind of look, if you just pull, up after you just do a log or anybody else's logging, you hit the H key, it looks at the header file. And in Betaflight, it's very put together. Betaflight's generally very polished from start, from stem to stern. Just all the stuff works together well, better than any other firmware I've ever used, period. ArduPilot seems to be pretty good because it doesn't change a lot. But any other open source or closed source, it's always, they have these certain things of the firmware a little bit not kept up with. Seems like the beta, all the contributors Betaflight. So long story short, and many, an INAV and other things, if you pull this header file up, you'll see stuff like this, but you can see in Betaflight that's very little. And it does have this nice thing sent down here where even if it's unknown header file stuff, it's not like organized up here. You can still see the data down here, which is really nice. So even if it is a little out to date. So the reason we have this is because you can see we're on Betaflight 4.4.2. I have to see if there's a new black box, but maybe there's something in there. But coming back to here, we have the gyro filter data showed up here. You can see the slider position. So there is some tweaks to this. He has the gyro LPF1. This is the one that goes up and down with throttle. That's turned off. And then he has a biquad at 700 hertz. Then the D term biquad at 165 here as well. 82, 165. And then so I guess one of the things I would look at, so there's two main things that are going to be your prop wash, your prop wash components, right? And one of the first ones is going to be filtering. So you're going to want to, it's a balance between filtering and your gains, your PID gains up here. So you can also see this as well. So in Betaflight's world, excuse the cough. Let Betaflight come up here quick. Luckily we have the master slider, so it's pretty straightforward. Now, another thing you gotta kind of keep in mind, just use the virtual COM port here, is that your motors can only update so fast based on their physical performance. There are some ESC settings that you can do to optimize that, that you can use to optimize that. Basically, the PWM frequency is a component of that. So that's one piece to look at. The other piece is the amount of filtering you're using on the gyro. It's a FETTech board. Turn it on. So if you're applying too much filtering to the gyro signal, then it is delayed and it's hard for the quad to kind of keep up, or it's just acting on bad data. So let me go into here so I can get some actual values. And then the third thing is just your PID gains in general, like how high they are. So there's really three things that affect prop wash. The physical performance of your motor, or I guess it's four things. Physical performance of your motor. And what you can do is get bigger motors, which is, kind of costly, but you can get lighter props. So making sure you're using props that are pretty lightweight, especially out at the tips, so they can update speed fast. That helps. That can help a lion's share. That can be the biggest thing that you can do, is just lightweight props. The next thing after that is the ESC settings, and you can use the lower ESC settings like 24 kilohertz PWM frequency on your ESC settings. That will give you increased braking torque because without getting into all kinds of details, that gets you into increased braking torque. So trying to use lower PWM frequencies. Now on the 2.5 inch, you may start to see that sacrifice battery life. So that's a balance, and that's why there's not like one size fits all for this stuff. So you gotta, I don't know what PWM frequency you're at. Maybe you can type that in there. 1 millisecond of gyro filter and 2.5 milliseconds of D-term, according to PID Toolbox, which is, kind of a guesstimate on that. So the PWM frequency part is another piece to that. Move this like this so I can see both. And he's using 96 on PWM, so that's pretty high. So Josh G says 96 on that. So Josh, I would say, is there a reason for going so high? Because if you bring that down to 48 or 24, you should get better prop wash performance. I would think, I have not seen that between like 96 and 48 kilohertz. I haven't seen a lot of battery increase, as in your longer battery life. But I have seen it definitely between 24 and 48, especially on whoops, like not cine whoops, but like whoops, like little, 30 gram whoops, indoor whoops. Big increase in battery performance by increasing that to 48 kilohertz. So that's what I would recommend on whoops. Once you get up to the 2.5 inch, you're right at that. I would say like once you get to 3 inch or 4 inch, it's a diminishing return that you don't really see battery increase performance by going from a 24 to a 48 kilohertz PWM frequency. But that, 2.5 inch, yeah, you could see something there. So keep that in mind. So what I would try to do, honestly, if I were you, is, and this is a cine whoop, cine whoop. So you need peak prop wash performance, probably in like, you're trying to do something cinematic wise, and it's starting to give you a little shake and shimmy, and you don't want to have that. I would definitely try to, first thing I would look at it again is props. Is there any lighter weight alternatives that work for you? Second, after that, I would definitely try the 24 kilohertz PWM, see how that works for you, see how the battery life is, and go from there. And maybe the balance between the two is a 48 kilohertz instead of the 96. So that would be the next thing. So I'm trying to hit like the bigger things. Like biggest thing is props. Next biggest thing is that PWM frequency. After that, the filter piece to that. And as we come back to here, looking at the filtering here, I would guesstimate that you could just turn this one off, this biquad at 700 hertz. And let me just do a little look here, because I'm seeing that your D term here is really, really smooth. So, basically it doesn't need to be that smooth. And if I look at your raw gyro noise, let me look here. Come on. So your gyro sampling only goes up to 2000 hertz, which is fine. And we probably have a little bit of a bouncing going on here. Let me trim that out at the end. Yeah, so trimming that. Oh, that's not what I want to do. Let's do in there and out here. There we go. So you can see you have a biquad filter set right here, 700 hertz. And although, it's pretty high, so that reduces the delay, because the higher the low pass filters are away from zero, the least amount of delay they provide. However, there's not really much noise up here, right? This is the raw signal before it's filtered. There's just nothing up here. So I wouldn't, and I know they talked about the anti-aliasing thing, if that's what's, kind of triggering you to set this biquad at 700 hertz. I would not worry about that personally. The gyro has a built-in anti-aliasing filter. That's why there's nothing here, because it's taking care of it. It has a biquad level filtering set at 250 hertz. So right here in the gyro chip itself. And you can't, You don't want to turn that off. You can, but you don't want to turn that off. So I would just nix this biquad up here. I don't know. It's not, well, it's not helping your prop wash scenario, and I don't see it doing much. So there's no point to having it on. So that's another tip. So the 24 kilohertz, I would give that a go. See if you can make that. See if that can work for you. And then the getting rid of this. Just turn off both your low pass filters for the gyro. Dynamic notch. Likewise, it's not going to do much, but you could trim out, take this from 1 harmonic or 3 harmonics down to 2. So that's 3 times the peak frequency. So let's just look at what that means. So when your RPM filters are working in this range, right? They're going to be working from 300 hertz, because this is your motor noise from the quad. And you can see that if we take this from frequency to frequency versus time, and we click on it again, and you can see that motor band right here, right? Again, this is the raw noise before filtering. So do we see the harmonics of this? And harmonics of this would look like additional motor bands out here. There would be another one out here that's lighter, and then another one out here. So what we can do is turn this up a little bit. Actually, yep, like that. And you can see something slight. See that right there? A little bit of slightness of that. And then maybe something here, but it's very faint, if anything at all. I'm really amplifying that color graph by doing this to even see that at all. So largely, I would argue that, going back to the harmonics here again, oops, that although you have 3 harmonics, so that means that it's setting notch filters on the fundamental frequency, which is right here, and it's going to go up and down. As like you increase throttle, like 24% throttle, it's going to put your notches right here. As you go up to 50% throttle, it's going to be moving them here, and then it goes up as you go up to 100% throttle, it's moving them all the way up to here. Then 2 harmonics, having harmonics set at 2, it means it's setting another one at double. So at 500 hertz, that means it's going to set another harmonic all the way out here at 1,000, right? So it's 580, you're almost 1,200, way out here. I don't even have 1,200 on here. So, and then, obviously if I'm looking right here, this is, let's just say 300 just to make it easy for me. So 300, when I'm at 34% throttle, that means it's setting another set of notches out here at 600, right here. So is there all that much need for these notches out here? Not really. There's not much out here. This is, again, the raw noise. And one could argue, well, there's a little bit. You said there was a little bit, and you can see it. There's a little bit right here. See that? And you're right. There is. There is a little bit there. But there's definitely hardly nothing out here at, double that then. For 600 up to 1,200 again. We're out off the chart. So that's another way to trim off a little filter delay. So if I would come back into here, that's what I would do, right? I would take this off. I would take this at least down to 2 harmonics, maybe even 1. Really, 1 harmonic would be good, which is really just putting 1 set of notches at the fundamental. You have the Qs nice, pretty high here. This is a pretty clean rig. You can look at, can you get away with just 2 dynamic notches or just 1, just to bring that down. And they finally, is this need to be a biquad? This static 2, can that just be a PT1? So just trimming down a little bit more on this, because when I'm looking at this log, I mean, you have room to go that you can trim down on this if you'd like. I'm seeing these D terms, and really the biggest thing is if you do trace template 4 here, stick tracking. See how these your motor commands are so smooth. That means that, the raw output of this whole thing really comes down to these motor commands, and you don't see a lot of it commanding the motors to speed up and slow down, speed up and slow down, speed up and slow down, which would wear and waste battery life. You can get your motors too hot if they can respond fast enough to that. So these traces down here, I honestly think they're too clean. And normally, like, what's that mean? Too clean? If everything's flying beautifully, and you're like completely happy with the performance, then there is no such thing as too clean. But if you're like, I like a little bit more prop wash performance out of this, then there is that. Then you kind of reels in the subject of, you can make these a little dirtier. Well, how do you make those dirtier? Well, start trimming off some of that filtering. So just to wrap this part up, I would take this filter off altogether. I'd bring these harmonics down to 2 or 1. I would probably bring it down to 1. I would change this bi-quad to PT1 for your D-term low-pass filter, and I would see how that goes. If that goes well, I may even consider taking this down from 3 to a 2 for the dynamic notch, how many dynamic notches you have. From that point, I would say that's a pretty aggressive filter tune. The next final piece for prop wash performance, once you get kind of your happy point with filtering, is just to go in here, and I don't have your exact stuff input here for your settings, but the beauty of Betaflight's master multiplier slider, you're just going to want to slide this up and just keep sliding that up. I'd go like 2 points at a time. When I say points, that's like a 0.5 to a 0.7. That'd be 2 points up. 0.7 to a 0.9. That's 2 points up from there. Just go up 2 points at a time. And that's where you'll get a decent amount of prop wash performance increase by moving that up. You'll keep moving this up to a spot where you'll start to, when you arm it, and you'll probably hear it on the ground first, it will start to sound like a fluttery sound, like it's like nervous. You've probably gone too far at that point. You got to bring this back down again. Now, if you do get that flutter spot and want to move this up further, the only way to get that flutter to go away is actually decrease filtering more. So that's counterintuitive. You think, it's fluttery. That's because there's too much noise getting to the PID loop. I need to increase the filtering. Now that flutter is almost like a phase delay issue that's creeping in. So if you reduce the filtering more, that moves that flutter point higher, so that you could actually move this slider higher to kind of catch it back up to it. So like decrease the filtering, flutter point goes higher, then you can increase the master multiplier slider to get closer to it, which gives you stronger PID gains, which helps with prop wash performance. So it's really a balance of like, how aggressive do you want it to be? And that's why tuning is kind of personal, because it's based on it's almost like investing in the market. It's based on your personal risk reward and where you're comfortable and things of that nature. So hope that helps. He's saying on here, so we can pull this back up. I'll pull that up here. Yeah, no, I hope this helps, and I hope if you're learning a lot, I'm sure other people, hopefully other people are as well. Hopefully I'm providing some helpful information. But yeah, there's your master multiplier. So this stuff looks fine to me. This personally, I mean, it should be okay. These I-terms have such a wide variant, but one thing this will surely keep your quad on track for it, like drifting around in some like cinematic moves, to have such a high I-terms like that. If you're not having issues with those, then I wouldn't worry about it. Those are fine. Just keep sliding this master multiplier up. If you ever do get a spot where it starts like some sort of wobbly thing, where it gets like a little bit of a wobble scenario, bring this drift wobble down. So that's the intent there. That's the higher you move the slider, you might get a wobble condition. The lower you move this slider, you might kind of get drifty, and that's like loosen the turns. Think of like a drift car, might feel a little loose. That's mostly for like racing pilots more than anything, but it'll feel a little looser if you go too low on those I gains. But yeah, there's your master multiplier. You'd slide that up. All right. Yeah, I think there's the rule of thumb of small motors, high PWM frequency. But my limit to that means small motors, high PWM. That means 48K, not 96. I've not seen a real good. I have not seen a lot of battery savings, even in the Whoop, which is the smallest motors that I know of, where when I went from 48 to 96 that the battery life extended that much. And you're really, that's the hardest condition too. That's a 1S Whoop. So you only have like one cell. There's not much volume of, the granular crap in there that the batteries are made out of. So it's a really kind of a fragile, the larger the packs, the more beefy they are for electrical charge, discharge and just in general, they're more beefy to put up with stuff. But yeah, I would say 48 is kind of my limit. I would try 24, see how you like that. And kind of step through these things one at a time. Like I said, the props, try the 24, see how that goes. Don't change anything else. Just do the 24, see how that goes. Then maybe do some of that filter stuff that we talked about, see how that goes, give it a fly, and then start to bump that master multiplier up. That's kind of your final stage. And you will get to a point where you're like, hey, I did all that. I'm at 24. I moved the filters down as far as I can go, and that, it starts getting a little bit of filtering. The command traces there get a little, too jumpy, and the motors might heat up if you were paying attention that much to them. And then you moved up your master multiplier slider too, right? And you said, I'm still getting prop loads. There is a physical limit where your motors just cannot update any faster than they are. I think in Betaflight, let's see here. I thought that got added in. Let's take a look. At one point, and I don't know if it's in this release or the next one. Oh, I guess I don't see it in here. Maybe it's the next release. Feed forward, command, battery voltage, accelerometer, gyro, motors, flag, states, heading. That's the good. You can see where they're going with that. I don't see it in here, but I believe in. I gotta look. I thought it was in this release though, where it's going to start to record black box and RPM data all the time. Get black. Nope. Get log. I don't see it here either. All right. Yeah, I have to look around for that. But if there is a debug mode, so you can go to black box and you can change this to RPM. So once you get past the filtering stuff and you don't care about like what the raw noise looks like, you could just change this debug mode to RPM filter. That kind of gives you what you want. Actually, you want RPM. You probably want this one, ESC sensor RPM. And then that will have the motor, your debug mode will be, instead of raw data, the raw gyro data, it will be the ESC RPM data. So take that ESC RPM data on the next log then, and what you can do is when you're having those prop wash events, you can hit this little graphic setup down here. Yep, I'm not over it. Go down to where the motors are here, hit plus. Hit add field, come on. Oh, once you had add field, you would pick, this would say debug ESC RPM data. It would change its name here. You'd pick that, and then it would add all the traces. So it would, like I say I grab that one. What happens here is the top the top of each of these rows, you guys ever notice this? But like if I pit RC command, it will add roll, pitch, and yaw automatically for me. If I pick PID D, it will add roll, pitch for me automatically. So when you go down to debug mode, if you just pick the top one, then it will add in all three like it did here. Now this log has the roll, pitch, and yaw raw noise, but it would add all that data in there. And then you can kind of compare your RPM data from, you know, what your motor commands are going out versus what the actual RPM of the motors is changing. You can kind of compare the two sets of lines, and you can see that, oh, wow. So my motor command is saying to do this, but it is taking, you know, you can use the M key to hit mark point, and you can measure a distance from that marked point. You can hit M again to clear it. So if I hit M and then I can slide forward and backwards, I can see how many milliseconds. So ignore how this looks. It's stupid, but because it's, you know, hours, minutes, it doesn't really make sense. But at the end of the day, this means 57 milliseconds. Doesn't make sense to me, at least. 57 milliseconds, which is equivalent to 18 hertz. So you can kind of measure between when you actually give it a command to the actual RPM changes. And that has nothing to do with like filtering and anything else. That's just the flight controller did its part. It gave it to the command to the ESC. The ESC then commanded the motor to change. And then the ESC is monitoring the RPM data, monitoring the back EMF of the motor and monitoring how fast the motor's spinning. And it is then sending that data back to Betaflight. So that all that monitoring and sending the data back happens pretty fast. So it's a really good representation of, you know, just how much your motors can speed up or slow down. All right, we got a couple other things here in the chat. Let me bounce over to those. See if I can do this correctly here. Yeah, look at me go. I'm like a... Look at me. See, for you guys, you don't see that, but on my side, I figured out finally that OBS, you can set, what's it called, studio mode. And then I don't just start randomly switching back and forth. So this is like big doings for me. It's really nice for a live stream. Anyways, it's the little things. Got to find happiness in the little things. All right. Next up here, we got I'm a Patreon INAV on SpeedyBX2. Remove the barrow with removed barrow because have GEP RCM 1010 with barrow. Is there any idea what is going on with my setup? I have done all the steps I should. Well, I don't, what's, OZ, go with OZ. What's wrong? Is it not reading your barrow? Is that the issue? I guess give me a little info. I can't. Okay, I can't get good position hold drift in one direction, and it thinks I'm a mile away. Well, the first I'd start with is how many satellites are you getting? You know, you generally want to see, I don't know, 8+ satellites. Are you getting 8+ satellites? And are you turning on, let's see if I can do this in Betaflight. It's all the same, basically. There is, are you turning on Galileo? So let me switch to here. No problem. Transition. So switching to here, you want to use this Galileo option. When enabled, the GPS module will also track Galileo satellite system. That will give you an increased number of satellites. So you're using INAV. Let me go to here. Yeah, there's a couple things. So if it's seeing you're really far away, that's what's kind of got me spooked about the GPS module. So somebody mentioned in the chat about the magnetometer. Yeah, it's all tuned up. It's all blue color. Galileo is on. GPS is 11 to 12, sometimes more. So can you clarify? You're saying that it thinks I'm miles and miles away. So it's where it has your position is not accurate on a, like, I would assume you're, what do you mean it thinks you're miles and miles away? Like, are you plugging into the configurator and it's pulling the map up behind it? And that's what you're going with for the distance, like for where you're miles and miles away. The other thing, Kyle C comes up, and then that's usually toilet bowling. If it's position hold is not good because, and it's kind of swirling around in a circular pattern, that means your magnetometer generally needs to be recalibrated, or you should, that would be the first thing. It's not like, oh, that's definitely it all 110% of the time. It's always just that. It could be other things, but that's the first thing you would check, magnetometer. So maybe recalibrate magnetometer. Let me see. On the maps, I know when I'm, okay, yeah. On the maps, I know where I live, and when I turn it on somewhere. Yeah, so he's saying in the chat here that when he's, I guess you're plugging in, yeah, and so he says, on the maps, I know where I live, and when I turn it on, is somewhere more 1,000 miles away or 20 kilometers high. That is interesting. Have you tried? Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. So I guess another question is, does it matter? Have you tried like a return to home? Does it come back, or does it start to fly away and then you have to take it out of that mode? Did you try just simulating not a fail-safe, but turning home manually on a switch so you can turn it back off? And does that work? Because maybe it's just, to some extent, the mapping issue. I don't know what that could be off the top of my head. But on the flip side, it's all relative, so it doesn't matter. Really what you want it to do is position hold, altitude hold, and return to home. And I guess if you just put in mission waypoints, then the mapping matters because you're going to be drawing those on a map. So it'd start with that. So get back to me on that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Today I flashed a 4-in-1 flight controller with Betaflight 4.2.5 to 4.4. PID tuned it. When flying, after 3 minutes, it drops out of the sky without failsafe. After that, 10 seconds in flight, it occurs again. It's an F405. Can you give me any hints? So you're not disarming it and it just drops out of the sky. Does it spiral out of the sky or does it just turn off? One thing I would check is, because this happened to me a long time ago, is your battery, when you plug in your battery, is there a decent amount of resistance? If there's not, there's the little pins where your battery plugs in. Make sure you can take a little screwdriver in there and widen them out on the quad side of it. And just to make sure it's not losing battery connectivity, which is just happening at an instance, it's shutting off. Like, do you lose camera or is it just the quad shuts off? And then the second question, is it spiraling? And are you doing any moves? Is it a desync where the ESC is losing where the commutation of the motor is at and it causing it to desync and fall out of the sky. So if you can give me some, it just drops. It turns off. You know, the O3 still has voltage. Just drops. So you're flying horizontally. And it just goes, bloop, and you just start to see it like just go straight down. Not like, and it doesn't flip over. It might flip over eventually. But when it first starts to drop, it just as you're going straight, it just goes, you know, not a turn, doesn't do this, doesn't do any of that. Right away, it just, when the first instance to drop, it just kind of dives straight down, just like you would hit zero throttle. It will start to drift over slowly, but is there any quick increase in speed? Because the thing that's a known thing is a desync. The FC does not do anything. If I turn on the beeper or anything, in about 20 seconds you hear a beeping, and it turns back on. Well, so now you're saying, or give them some information that when you go to enact a command or whatnot, it takes a while for it to actually do it. Above the ground. Yes, if I fly a meter above the ground, it slides over the ground, right around. Okay. So it's an F4. It's an F4. What PID loop frequency are you running? That would be the next thing my mind would go to. Make sure you're running a 4K PID loop with RPM filter on. Maybe you're hitting 100% of the processor speed with, I don't think you said this one's not a GPS. There's no GPS or anything on it, especially if you're running GPS for anything. On, you can hear that. It's probably not good, but you can hear that. I don't know what's going on with my other microphone here. Let me unplug it and plug it back. Yeah. Don't swap. There we go. All right, now here we go. Got that. Properties. Change it back to that. There we go. So yeah, I was just doing this live stream, and then out of the blue, you know, my microphone just dropped out of the sky. So I don't know what happened there. So maybe your prop issues are contagious, or your quadcopter issues are contagious. So the last thing I was saying is you're really taking away all the things that I would think of that your quad would just drop out of the sky. I would still check the battery lead, make sure they're nice and tight. Check solder joints if you're at a 4K already. The other thing is turn on the temperature, your flight controller temperature in the Betaflight screen here. Transition. Yep, we've still got sound. Yeah, we still got sound. Good, good, good. In the OSD, turn on the is 59% load and nope, that's not too much at all. So in the recent versions of Betaflight, you can go up to like 80, even 90. You just gotta want to make sure, like, if it's on the bench. We usually say if it's on the bench and it's running like 80 to 90, 90's pushing it, because if there's anything in flight that would cause it to hit 100, it shouldn't shut off though. It should just skip your motor. So you can see this in a tiny whoop, like get an F411 flight controller, and then which is usually for tiny whoops, and just crank the turn on the RPM filtering, put it at 8K, DSOT 600, and you'll see what happens as you're flying around. It will like stutter and skip. So it's not like the thing falls out of the sky. It's just like, it's because your quadcopter can't keep up PID loop wise. But anyways, I guess the next thing I would say for your flight controller woes here of this thing falling out of the sky on you, which I'm sure as hell erodes confidence as you're flying in the craft, I mean, is I would turn on the ESC or some of the temperature stuff, like ESC if you do have ESC telemetry, and then you should be able to turn on the core temperature. I would turn on core temperature and ESC temperature. See, I don't know why those would be going too high, especially if the flight controller is open normally. But turn those on, see what's going on there. After that, I would check just your connections. Remelt some of the. Man, it's 4-in-1's ESC though. Let me go back here. Go find me. GoFundMe for better mic holder. What's wrong with my mic holder? Come on. This is fine. Look, come on. What's wrong with this? Yeah. Let me see here. Say, if you have a 4-in-1 ESC, so, man, yeah. I'll have to get back to you if anything else comes to mind. Even if Betaflight, I noticed that I have to unplug the FC before something, or sometimes it will just has the wait for data screen. Waiting for data screen. Sounds like, yeah, it sounds like you're on the O3 air unit. I've seen that quite a bit. That's an OSD communication thing. I wouldn't put too much solace in that part. It would be more the core temperature stuff. Something's locking up. Something's not happening, or it's losing power somehow. Okay. Let's see. All right. Lots of stats. So bad. Okay. All right, gents. Well, that is it. We are at 4 o'clock. Unless there's any other things, I think we addressed all the questions out there and got a little bit of a log review in here. So hopefully that stuff was helpful. Talking about prop wash and all that good stuff. Appreciate everybody coming out, and any of the support from the patrons out there as well. Appreciate that, and I will see you guys here on the next one. Again, thanks for coming out, and we'll see you here on upcoming videos. Hopefully some people out there are enjoying some of the INAV content. It's a little bit little different, trying to expand into little bit more than just the Betaflight ecosphere. Thanks, guys.